What's up? It's your boy Hawk. Welcome back to another episode of Hawk Tubes. This feels like it's been a very long time since we said that. Little bit of a podcast style episode for you guys. There's a lot I want to talk about. I wanted to really talk about something I was excited about for my first episode back in forever. So today's episode, we're talking about my most exciting teams, the teams I'm most excited to see this coming up NBA season. Most of them, I think, are the most exciting NBA teams coming up in this NBA season. The teams that either made a move in the offseason or potentially making a move in the next offseason, depending on how this season goes. Honestly, I think every NBA team can go on. I can go on about every NBA team for about 3-4 minutes about something exciting or interesting about them. But these teams, these are the special ones, at least to me. But before we get into that, there was a lot of news that's happened over the last couple of weeks. Just in general, just some things I want to talk about. The first thing I want to shout out to the 2025 Hall of Fame class, because it has some of my personal favorite players in it. Some of my personal favorite players that I grew up watching that really got me falling in love with NBA basketball. Shout out to the 2008 Redeem team. That whole team made it. I recently, not this year, but last year, I recently went back and watched a couple of the 2008 games. Like I watched the gold medal game against Spain. I went back and watched just a ton of highlights from throughout their time and as the 2008 Redeem team in that Olympic year. Just special basketball. And it's, people have been saying it all week, yes, but it is still crazy that LeBron is arguably top 10 at worst in the league and was on the 2008 Redeem team. Low-key crazy. And also crazy that he was on this past Olympic team and was on the 2008 Redeem team. Shout out to longevity. But the two, mainly the one, both guys were important to me, but one is very important to me. Shout out to Carmelo Anthony for getting into the Hall of Fame. Historic career. One of the guys who I think is every guy who's my age's favorite player. Talk about scoring in a phone booth. His time in Denver, his time in New York. Literally went to New York at a time when a lot of people didn't like, when New York was always the Mecca. New York was always the Garden. New York City was always New York City. But at a time when Carmelo Anthony went there, New York wasn't good. New York hadn't been good really since like Patrick Ewing era, John Starks era. Like that was the last time New York was good, and they spent a long time being bad. Shout out to Starberry. And those days were fun for sure. But for New York to be respected on terms of, I guess I'll say, somewhat contending level, like perennial playoffs, expected him to make a push in the playoffs every year. Melo brought that to New York. So shout out to Melo. And also shout out to Melo for his time he spent playing for OKC, playing for Portland, and playing for the Lakers. Especially his time playing for Portland when a lot of people thought, I mean, the league was trying to basically force him out and not necessarily give him any contracts. And his year in Portland and his time in Portland, to me, and I think to a lot of people, re-showcased that, hey, he was still good. Even though the OKC might have not have went how people wanted it to go, the Lakers' time might not have went how people wanted it to go, but Portland let him play his game, and he was solid for the Portland Trailblazers. But to me, not the most important, but the most important to me and the biggest name to go into the Hall of Fame in this past year to me, also shout out to Sue Bird. I got to show her some love. Amazing WNBA career, amazing collegiate career. To me, one of the OGs of the WNBA, that one of the first people, her and Diana Taurasi, I'll always look at as the people who got me into the W, who got me to start watching the WNBA. Those two individuals is what got me starting to watch it. Diana Taurasi was like, we talking about Sue Bird, but Diana to me was like WNBA Kobe. Like that's how much I liked Diana Taurasi, and Sue Bird was right up there with her. But the name to me that was the most impactful or meant the most to me that is getting into Hall of Fame and getting his flowers is Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard was my first favorite player in the NBA. I started watching the NBA for real, probably like 2007. The year before, right before the year before the Celtics won their chip. And I started watching in Dwight's prime. Like I started watching as he was entering his prime. He was dominant in Orlando. The rest of his career was a little up and down. He wasn't great with the Lakers, or honestly, his back issues made his career up and down. He rushed from some back injuries to play alongside with Kobe and Nash, and it didn't go as we thought it would. Then he was, I think, really, really good with Houston and Harden until it wasn't. And it was funny. I was listening to Zach Lowe's podcast, and they were also talking about the Hall of Fame inductions, and they were talking about Dwight's time in Charlotte. It's like, can you remember a time of Dwight and Charlotte. And I was like, I remember a 40 ball. Dwight gave Charlotte a 40 ball. He had a 40 ball when he was in Charlotte. I want to say it was like a 40-20 game, if I'm not mistaken, but I know it was at least a 40 ball. So shout out to Dwight. To me, still going to go down as one of the most dominant centers in NBA history. Where you have him, that's up to you in terms of your center tier rankings. I don't think his career isn't going to end and be looked upon as, I think, up there with some of the greats, like top 5, top 10 centers, maybe. No. And if that's the case, whatever. But his career, to me, especially the Orlando years, special. Moving on, I want to talk about, I have the Kawhi Leonard situation written down. I don't have much on it, to be honest with you. I think I think journalism's really cool. And I love when journalists take the time to really dig into something that they find interesting and make this big, I don't want to use the word expose, but expose about it. And what's going on with Kawhi and getting $48 million from this sponsorship, the sponsorship money from this company that has now gone bankrupt. And part of his deal was that he didn't have to do anything to get the $48 million. And so now there's a lot of speculation that Steve Ballmer was involved in Steve Ballmer and the Clippers organization were involved in this and used this $48 million to circumvent the salary cap, because Steve Ballmer also donated $50 million to this company, to this, I should say, organization, because I believe it was a nonprofit, or supposed to be a nonprofit. And it just, it's two things. One, the first thing for me is a lot of people were like, oh, this has got to mean like maybe Kawhi's contracts get voided, the Clippers lose a bunch of picks. From everything I'm seeing now lately, and Adam Silver recently, right before I hit record, just did a press conference talking about it and basically was saying, it makes it seem like they're not going to do much. I'll link it down in the description and in the show notes, his recent press conference, but it doesn't seem like they're going to do nothing. It doesn't seem like much is going to come out of it. And honestly, if anything, it shines, I think, a potential bigger light on, does this happen more often around the league? Even if it's not the owners or the organization doing something like this, which is illegal in terms of the CBA, of circumventing the salary cap. But when you're a team, that's one of the advantages of a big market is you get more sponsorship opportunities. And as much as the NBA has tried to do things like the CBA, like the Saccharine apron to make it so that smaller market teams have a better opportunity to build a team and to build a championship contender, it's still going to be hard to do that in free agency, because even if all the teams are held to the same standards and in the same levels and in the same restrictions in terms of what their salary cap can be, random organizations, random companies, other companies that work closely alongside your organization are more likely to sponsor guys that are in big markets, just because there's more eyeballs on them, because the market is bigger. So their sponsorship money, they're going to get more out of their sponsorship money. And it's not something that I think I really thought about for real, when it comes to big market versus small market, because so much talk has been about the CBA and these first and second aprons over these last couple of years. There's a whole nother world that's not talked about, really, and that's sponsorships. Now, granted, yes, the big names that get the national sponsorships, like Ja Morant getting his shoes at Memphis. I'm not saying Memphis is a small market, but it's not LA, New York, Chicago, Miami. You know what I'm saying? SGA has his shoes in OKC with Converse, but SGA is also the MVP. So what other deals that we don't know about that aren't the national deals? Because honestly, let's keep it a bean. If this report, this expose, I'm gonna use that word again, doesn't come out about this Kawhi situation, no one knows nor cared before that he had an extra $48 million on the side. So from a company that no one ever even heard of. So how many other teams, organizations, not necessarily organizations, but how many other players are benefiting from a similar deal? I think the Kawhi situation just opens up that question, especially to me as like the super nerd fan, because this idea of parity gets pushed and pushed and pushed. And I'm not even saying it's not real to an extent. This past finals was the Pacers and the Thunder, two small market teams, but for the most part, two small market teams that honestly, to an extent, built those teams through either trades or drafting well. Not necessarily big free agent signings is my point. So I think the big free agent signings are still going to end up in the big markets. because there's probably tons of sponsorship deals that are available to players that we don't even know about. Moving on, speaking of sponsorship deals and player signing, I want to talk about the couple of the few players left in restricted free agency. So Cam Thomas, just the other day, it's the 10th when I'm recording this, on September 4th, he signed a qualifying offer to stay with the Brooklyn Nets. They had been going back and forth for a deal for a while. They could not agree on anything. Cam Thomas, I think, was trying to see what his value was outside of the Nets organization. Wasn't there for him just yet, partially because a lot of teams really don't have the cap space to pay him. And so he took a $6 million deal for 1 year, no trade clause, and he's going to be an unrestricted free agent next summer when over 10 teams have cap space that might actually be able to pay him. I found this fascinating only because it took so long, and I think Cam Thomas is actually a really good player, but I think Cam Thomas is the archetype of player. He's like, this might sound crazy, but he's like a better Karis LeVert, meaning they're going to put up shots. They might not play great defense. Their playmaking is not amazing, but they're going to pull up a lot of shots. Michael Porter Jr. Honestly, Cam Thomas and Michael Porter Jr. on the Nets next season might make them, should put them on my list as one of the teams I'm interested in, just to see what the offense looks like with two guys like that who are willing and wanting to put up a lot of shots. Or at least I'll say to score. Saying putting up a lot of shots makes them sound efficient. They're not necessarily any inefficient. They're efficient scorers to an extent, but they're not like the most elite efficient scorers in the league. Good guys on potentially a championship team or a team aspiring to be championship aspirations if you have the right defenders around them. Josh Giddey re-signed with the Bulls, 4 years, $100 million. I was surprised at this amount only because it took so long, and because it was taking so long, I'm thinking, well, maybe Josh Giddey ends up somewhere else, another situation where he just ends up on the same team. I like this for the Bulls a lot. Well, let me rephrase. I like this for Giddey a lot, getting a bag, because I think Giddey's good. At post All-Star break, Josh Giddey, I don't have his numbers necessarily right in front of me, but that was the best version of Josh Giddey we've probably seen in his career. That little stretch after the All-Star break last season, it was fantastic. If he can continue that and pick up on that and continue in that direction, I think the Bulls will have a really good table setter, a guy who can score, who's doing a decent amount of scoring, a bigger guard, and honestly, if needed, that contract's movable. If they decide to move him and cash in on some of that value, I think Josh Giddey could be a really good addition to, potentially, to a team that's really actually trying to make the playoffs. No offense, Bulls. Russell Westbrook still does not have a deal. And it's feeling very similar to how Carmelo, we just talked about Carmelo making it to the Hall of Fame, but towards the end of his career, we were getting to the end of summers, and it's like, dang, Melo doesn't have a deal yet. Well, now we're getting to the end of the summer, and it's Russ doesn't have a deal yet. And yes, he has been linked to the Sacramento Kings, but apparently the Kings aren't looking to sign him or can't sign him until they're looking to trade Malik Monk. We'll talk about the Kings later because they are one of the teams I'm interested in, maybe for the wrong reasons. Russ, it's not crazy to me. I think the Lakers tenure left a lot of, for lack of a better phrase, a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. But his time with the Nuggets, he was valuable for that team. He was good for that team. It's not much, but he's finished 7th in 6 Man of the Year voting. I'm not saying he was going to win it. I'm not saying he was, first, second, third. My point only is, though, it was decided by voters, or at least a handful of voters, that he had value off of the Nuggets bench, a team that was trying to win a championship. And there were times during the regular season, during the playoffs, where he was third best player on that team, just because Jamal Murray might not have been playing well. Aaron Gordon was injured. Like, he was impactful for that Nuggets team. I wish things would have worked out differently, and honestly, he would have stayed on the Nuggets team. I think he was finding a good fit there, and another year off the bench there would have been good in terms of fit-wise and continuing some continuity there with those guys. Didn't work out. Russ is one of my favorite players. I've loved him since he's been in the league. I just hope he finds a spot. I don't know if he will, but I hope he does. And then two of the last names I want to talk about in terms of restricted free agency, Ben Simmons' agent just dropped him. Probably the first time I've heard this happening. Actually, no. This is, I think, Ben Simmons' second agent to drop him. It's the first time I've heard this happening, like, I guess I'll say recently. He rejected an offer. Apparently, the only contract offer that he got this offseason was from the New York Knicks. interesting fit personally. Uh, but he rejected that offer, and his agent dropped him. His agent put in a notice to the players union that he's no longer the agent is no longer representing Ben Simmons, and now without an agent and with the season, not shortly coming up, but it's crazy to think that Ben Simmons, a guy who was fantastic during his time with the Sixers. Yes, I know the ending, but a guy who he was runner up in defensive player of the year, I want to say in 2021, multiple time all defensive. He made an all NBA team, multiple time all-star. The sky was looking like the limit for him. Not the limit, but at least it was the defensive side of that sky and the playmaking side of that sky was looking like the limit. Or you know what I'm trying to say. Loved him on the Sixers. Apparently, there were even talks and there was interest. I saw reports. I didn't want it now, but there were reports of the Sixers showing interest in, I guess, reuniting with Ben Simmons and potentially offering him a contract that hasn't happened or didn't happen yet. At this point, I don't know if I wanted to happen, but it just goes to show that to me, he just wasn't the same after that back injury. Honestly, very similar to not the exact same, but very similar to the conversation we just had about Dwight Howard. After Ben Simmons' back injury, he was not the same. He just wasn't. And some people are saying it's back. Some people call it confidence. I think maybe they go hand in hand. If you don't have confidence, your body's going to move how you want it to move. It's at an NBA level. I'm sure it messes up your whole game. I'm just sure it messes up your all your confidence. And then last but not least, probably one of the most interesting situations is Malik Beasley. He has been, to my knowledge, a lot of NBA players. Terry Rozier was involved. Malik Beasley was involved. Shams just tweeted out that 3 college level players just got banned from the NCAA for betting. Michael Porter Jr.'s brother, I can't remember his first name, got banned from the NBA for betting. Like, a lot of betting allegations have been surrounding the sport of basketball over the last 2-3 years. And Malik Beasley is one of the, it's either he's going to turn out to be one of the latest victims because nothing comes up and he missed a big free agent window when he could have gotten 3 years, $42 million from the Pistons, or he's going to be one of the latest people involved if it turns out he was involved and then, punishments ensue. But it is interesting to me how much betting has become a part of the sport of basketball, not even just from a media side, a fan side, but now we're seeing more and more players getting either caught or potentially caught for betting, or allegedly caught, I'll say, for betting. And then last piece of news before we get into, I guess I'll say, the actual topic of today. The NBA announced that they're no longer going to be, let me read it from verbatim from Shams so I can know exactly how he worded it. The NBA will implement a new change for the 2025-26 season where unsuccessful end of period heaves will now be recorded as a missed field goal attempt for the team. So just like they have team fouls, some fouls aren't personal fouls, they end up being team fouls, and vice versa. Some fouls are personal fouls and not team fouls. These field goals are going to be a team field goal attempt and not count against the player's field goal percentage. I think this is an attempt to encourage players to shoot that Peyton Pritchard shot, the Jokic shot. Those are the 2 guys off the top of my head that are not afraid of just letting that ball go. A lot of people get on KD for holding the ball or purposefully shooting it after the clock is expired to not impact his field goal percentage. But honestly, from a player's standpoint, I kind of get it. Some people will argue, oh, well, if you make the shot, it helps your team win. Not many people. Them shots don't be falling. 1, they really don't. And 2, I mean, in some of these players' contracts, there's incentives to get certain field goal percentages. There's incentives to shoot a certain amount of threes or make a certain amount of threes. And hey, when money's on the line, people do different things. That's all I'm gonna say. When money's on the line, not everybody's willing to shoot a shot that is like a 1% chance of actually going in. Steph does it a lot too. But like I said, not everybody does. And I think it'll actually be interesting for the players who do it a lot and are still really efficient. I'm thinking of Steph. I'm thinking of, honestly, Peyton Pritchard from 3. And I'm thinking of Jokic. It should just make their percentages go up more because now those heaves won't count against them. Switching gears, what I wanted to really talk about today was teams that I'm excited for. Teams that I'm like, yes, the NBA season's almost here. Some of these teams are potential title contenders. Some of these teams are just teams looking to make a deep playoff push. Some of these teams are teams that honestly might just be looking to make the playoffs and seeing what they have and then going on from there. I'm going to start in the Eastern Conference first. First team I want to talk about because, and it'll be kind of quick because I've talked about them. I did a whole video on them when they made their moves earlier in the offseason. I want to talk about the Atlanta Hawks. I've been a Trae Young, I'm going to say a Trae Young fan for the last couple of years. Not so much necessarily the Hawks as a whole. I'm going to keep it a B. But Trae Young as a player, I think is super talented. I think he's one of the most talented point guards in this league. And I think this Atlanta Hawks team is the best team they've put around him so far in his career. Looking at some of the pieces they added, Nickeil Alexander-Walker is going to be really, really big for them, I think. One of the best defenders in the league. Really switchable, could still knock down a three, could put the ball on the floor a little bit and score, especially in attacking closeout situations. Kristaps Porzingis, to me, he was the piece that made the Boston Celtics unguardable. I said that time and time again, especially the year they won their championship in 2022. Excuse me, in 2023. 2024? I'm tripping all over the place. They went in 2022. That's when the Warriors won. But when they won it in 2024, 2 years ago, to me, Kristaps Porzingis was the piece that made them special. Yes, the entire team was special, but having a guy of his height being able to really stretch the floor and also be a great rim protector still, it made them special. And if he can be healthy, now the big question is his health. Like, how much is he going to play for the Hawks? That's going to be a big question. But Jalen Johnson coming back healthy, Dyson Daniels. I got some questions about Onyeka Okongwu, only because if KP can't play a lot, Okongwu's going to have to play a lot of minutes at that 5 spot. Slightly undersized 5. We'll have to see how they do there. But this Hawks team can play at fast pace. Trae Young has cutters, and Trae Young has shooters. I didn't even mention Luke Kennard, great shooter. Zachary Richichet, who's coming off of a really good rookie campaign, looking to just get better in year 2. To me, this is the best team the Hawks have put around Trae Young. And I'm excited to see what he can do and what the Hawks can do together with this team. They got some questions, but I'm excited about it. Next up on this list, I want to talk about Desmond Bane and being added to Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic were one of the teams last year that got off to such a good start and then got hit with a lot of injuries. Paolo goes down, Franz goes down. If I'm not mistaken, I want to say even Jalen Suggs spent some time out of the lineup. They just had a lot. They got bombarded with a lot of injury. So I would already be excited for the for the Orlando Magic if they just same team, full healthy for a season. I would already be excited about it just because their defense is that good. Paolo and Franz are that good at getting downhill and scoring around the rim and getting to the basket, even with some of the worst spacing in the league. And then you had Desmond Bane, who is a guy who's one of the, I want to say it's like only, I looked it up. I saw a tweet. It's only 4 guys in the league who shoot over 6 3-point attempts a game for their career and shoot over 40%. Those guys are Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Michael Porter Jr., and Desmond Bane. Shoots 41% for his career on 6.3 attempts a game. Desmond Bane is a guaranteed sniper, but that's not all he's going to bring to this team, which I like. We've seen Desmond Bane take on a primary playmaker role. So when Paolo or Franz isn't on the floor, or they just want to have a different look and get the ball out of their hands, Desmond Bane can be that reliable guy to run an offense. He can reliably run an offense. We've seen him be a playmaker, especially in times when Ja had either been in and out of the lineup due to injury or off-court stuff, or honestly, even alongside Ja, we've seen Desmond Bane be a primary ball handler and a couple of possessions here and there. He's going to be such a dynamic piece for them. But the real special part to me is a lot of times when a good defensive team like this needs some spacing or needs to add a shooter, they sometimes regress a little bit defensively. Desmond Bane is still a really, really good defender. They're not really going to miss a step in terms of their perimeter defense by adding Desmond Bane to this lineup. I'm not saying what the ceiling is for the Orlando Magic, but once again, just a team I'm really excited for. Next two teams I want to talk about are the two teams that I think most people have as their real title contenders coming out of the Eastern Conference: the Knicks and the Cavaliers. The Knicks have a lot going on for them. New head coach and Mike Brown. I'm still iffy on Tom Thibodeau being fired, but I do think Mike Brown is going to bring some freshness to this offense, and I think this team needed some freshness to this offense. Adding Jordan Clarkson is going to be huge for them. Some great and needed bench scoring. Remember, he won 6 Man of the Year in 2021 when he first got to Utah. 36% on three, 36% from three on 6 attempts a game last year. And he's had some up and down years over the last couple of years. If you just go look at his year-to-year 3-point percentage, it's been up and down. But for his career, he's a better 3-point shooter than he is a worse 3-point shooter, if that makes sense. And I think that's one of the things this Knicks team needed last year was, to me, bench depth. Everyone talked about how Tibbs only played 6, 7, maybe 8 guys for most of his games, especially deep in the playoffs. But to me, when I looked at that roster, after like guy number 7 or 8, who else was he really putting on the floor to really want to get something out of? You know, like that team just wasn't deep at all, in my opinion. So adding Jordan Clarkson adds some legitimate bench scoring punch for them. Shout out to Deuce McBride. I know he can do that as well. But I think there were at times where they were asking even a lot of Deuce, and he wasn't even going to be able to give them more than what he was already giving them. And I think they can get some of that from Jordan Clarkson. Really a flamethrower off the bench. But I also think a big piece so a lot of people went under the radar, but to me, because he was a former Sixer, I'm going to miss him a lot. Adding Guerschon Yabusele to this team, to me, is like adding a lesser version of Aaron Gordon to this team. I love the way Guerschon Yabusele plays. How I envisioned him on the Sixers, playing on the Sixers, and in the beginning of the season, how he looked next to Joel Embiid is exactly how I think he'll play and look next to and or backing up Karl-Anthony Towns for the Knicks. He can space the floor. He's a solid-ish defender. He can rebound the ball. He's smart on his cuts. Okay-ish passer, maybe not to the extent of an Aaron Gordon in terms of being a short roll hub, and maybe making some of those high-low passes like Aaron Gordon does to Jokic. But Cat can make that high-low pass to Guerschon if Cat's at the high post. Like, I really think they can play well together, and will have some really, really good synergy. I think he can back up Cat. He can be the backup 5 or the backup 4. And I think there's going to be times where he plays alongside Cat at either the 4 or 5 position to add some rebounding, especially considering Mitchell Robinson's injury history and his availability can sometimes be in question from a season-to-season basis. I think he's going to be a great fit. And I also think a lot of people are going to learn about Guerschon Yabusele and get to appreciate his game playing in a big market like New York. That has a lot of eyes on it. Other team that a lot of people think, and myself included, have the best chance of coming out of the Eastern Conference, the Cleveland Cavaliers. And honestly, the most exciting thing, the biggest piece that I'm excited for the Cavaliers is I just hope they can have a healthy postseason. This past year, Garland's toe injury. The year before that, Donovan Mitchell and Jarrett Allen were injured. And then the year before that, back in 2023, it wasn't necessarily a big injury that they were dealing with, but it was the first year that Donovan got there, so they were still kind of figuring it out. And Jarrett Allen has the famous quote of "the lights were too bright." So this is now going in this will be their 4th year together. Let's all be healthy. We know what our expectations are. We know our roles. We've continued to mesh together. I think this is a really, really good team. Donovan Mitchell is one of my favorite players in the league. I'm excited. And I even forgot to mention, if a healthy Lonzo Ball will greatly help their second unit. But it will also give Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland some reprieve when one of them isn't when they're not on the floor together last season. If it wasn't if Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland weren't on the floor together and only one of them was on the floor, that one guy was responsible for 100% of the offense. Yes, granted, somebody else might take the shot, somebody else might make the cut, but they were basically, the ball was in their hands 95% of the time when it was just one of them on the floor. Now, when it's just one of them on the floor, they'll likely be accompanied by Lonzo Ball, as long as Lonzo's healthy. And I like that for them. It gives them the opportunity to have some off ball reps without it just being both of them on the floor. And Alonzo, what we remember of Lonzo before the injuries, and he's coming back from this knee stuff. It had didn't play a lot in the past couple of seasons. Lonzo's a good defender as well. So when it is just one of them on the floor, Lonzo's going to be able to potentially be able to take some of that point of attack defensive matchups and really guard the other team's primary ball handler. I think the Cavs, if healthy, are going to be excellent this season. They were excellent last season. They just got injured at the end of the season. Like, that's really been something. I mean, that just comes with NBA basketball, unfortunately. Injuries are part of it, but that's really held them back a lot this not a lot, but a lot in the past couple of post seasons. And then I'm going to talk about a team that, on paper, when I really think about it, I'm just said, everybody, myself included, most of people's favorites coming out the East are the Cleveland Cavaliers or the New York Knicks. Where do people see the Milwaukee Bucks? I'm really interested in this because for two reasons. One, they've made some moves in the postseason, adding Miles Turner, getting rid of Brook Lopez, adding a Miles Turner. Very similar player. I've never fully bought Miles Turner's ability to stretch the floor. Yes, it's there for stretches, but it's not consistent enough, in my opinion. We'll see how he looks this year. But excellently defensively, it's very similar to how Brook Lopez was. Can stretch the floor, similar to Brook Lopez. So I'm curious to see how well he fits, because in terms of play style, not exact 1-to-1, but it should be similar. Gary Trent Jr., adding Kevin Porter to this team, I find it interesting. I don't know if he's going to be a fit, especially because, right now I'm looking at CBS Sports depth chart for him. They got him listed at point guard. I think this is going to be a year where we see a lot of point Giannis, a lot of Giannis having the ball, just because the point guard room for this Milwaukee Bucks team, Kevin Porter Jr., Cole Anthony, a little bit of Gary Trent Jr. from time to time trying. Like, the point guard room is thin. Like, I don't like their point guard play. I don't like their playmaking that's on this team. And not a lot of it is there, in my opinion. But when I look at the Eastern Conference, the best player on the Eastern Conference going into the season is going to be Giannis. And technically, yes, Giannis is good enough that if he has an MVP caliber season, he can drag this team to a deep playoff run, to a high seed. It's not a bad team. It's not bad players on this team. I'm looking forward to seeing what Giannis does with this team. Because also in the same breath, there's been so many rumors swirling around Giannis. Is he even going to finish the season as a Milwaukee Buck? Because clearly this roster isn't great, and Giannis is still MVP caliber and can pull off that type of season and put on those type of performances. So usually if you're a player who can do that, you want to be on a team that has a chance to win a championship. And this roster, to me at least, it's not giving championship caliber. But anything's still possible because Giannis is on this team. But we'll see if he finishes the season on this team. And then last but not least, in the Eastern Conference, I'm interested in seeing what the Celtics look like. And yes, it sucks that Jason Tatum's not playing. I still don't think he's going to play at all this season. I know there's been some speculation that it seems like he's recovering faster than most people recover with their Achilles. The pictures and photos went viral of him walking without a boot earlier than a lot of people expected. I just saw him post on, I want to see it was either IG post or his IG story. He said like week 17 or week 19, and it was him in the gym, like lifting and working out again. And so some people are optimistic that maybe he comes sometime during the regular season or right before playoffs. And to me personally, unless it looks like the Celtics really have a chance to do something for real, I don't think it's worth it. In terms of risking the injury, I just don't think it's worth it. But I am excited to see, because everyone said, not as much lately, especially after he won Finals MVP, Jaylen Brown did, but so many people always wanted to see what Jaylen Brown looked like on his team. What does a Jaylen Brown led team look like? What does Jaylen Brown look like as the number one option? Jaylen Brown's better than Jason Tatum. So many NBA fans pit these two honestly great players against each other instead of talking about how they complement each other. But that's just unfortunately the way the human brain thinks. Look at negatives instead of positives. But I'm interested because this year will be an opportunity to see what a Jaylen Brown led team looks like. Uh, it's still honestly some question marks in terms of their uh, front court depth. Front court is looking real thin on that Celtics team, but adding Anthony Simons, I think, is pretty cool in terms of another guy who an offensive heavy guard, a ball dominant, not ball dominant, but a guy who can create his own shot, score off the dribble, but also a really high volume, high percentage 3-point shooter who fits their style. Over the last 3 seasons, he's been over 7 3-pointers. Over the last 3 seasons, Anthony Simons, 7 3-point attempts a game, 37%. High volume, high efficiency, fits into their system. And we'll get his opportunity to see potentially and at least think about how Anthony Simons can fit when Jason Tatum's back. And now it's Anthony, Tatum, and Brown all playing together. They got to figure out what to do in that front court, though. Switching gears, I want to talk about teams that I'm really interested in the Western Conference, starting off with the defending champs, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Not only just for the ability to repeat the chip for potentially SGA to repeat back-to-back MVPs, that's already going to be interesting. They already were a 68-win team, best defense in the league, top, I want to say 3 or 4 offense in the league. They're already just interesting. But to me, the most interesting part of them and the piece that could honestly make them even better is Chet being fully healthy. Remember, in the beginning of the season, Chet looked really, really good on both sides of the ball. And then he went down with his injury, misses most of the season, comes back like right before playoffs. I want to say he played 37 regular season games, did not play a lot of regular season games, and then basically had to ramp up and get back into the playoffs and still looked good. There was some times where he looked a little shaky. A lot of people talked about it. But then there were also times where he really did step up and have big, impactful games on their way to winning the finals. So my question is, healthy Chet, working on his game this past offseason, continuing to get better, how much better can that make this OKC team? Can a better Chet, one just health and, like I said, working on his game, make the Thunder what I called the Celtics when Kristaps Porzingis was healthy and playing? Because like I always say, when KP was playing and healthy, the Celtics looked unbeatable, and that's what made them special. Yes, they had a lot of other stuff going on. Yes, the Thunder have SGA, they have Dort, they have J-Dub, they have Jalen Williams, they have Caruso, they have this crazy switchable perimeter defense that and they have Hartenstein that's going to hit you with an automatic floater 5-6 feet from the basket time after time. If again, they have such a special team. But if Chet's healthy and can be this 7'2", 7'3" rim protector who can also legitimately stretch the floor, do a little bit of work in the post, put the ball on the floor a little bit, and really just just really stretch that floor and really be a paint anchoring defender, that can make them like the scary special that the Celtics looked at times to me. So that's really exciting and interesting to me. Next team, we can't talk about a team in the NBA. We can't talk about NBA teams that are interesting or NBA teams that you're excited to see and not talk about the Lakers, right? Like it just, sometimes I find myself falling into the trap of the NBA media because all I feel like NBA media talks about is Lakers, 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 Bron. And I'm like, I get it though, because it is still Bron, and it don't make sense that he's playing this good this late in his career. And then they added Luka. So it's like, well, now 2 reasons to be interested in the Lakers. So Lakers add center DeAndre Ayton. I'm conflicted. I like DeAndre Ayton when he was a Phoenix Sun. The end of his tenure there, yes, flamed out, went horrible. But there were a lot of moments, especially when he played alongside Chris Paul, that DeAndre Ayton looked like the kind of center that can fit on this Lakers team. The question to me is, does DeAndre Ayton not fall back into that mode when he was playing alongside Chris Paul, but play more like that than the DeAndre Ayton we hear in reports how he wants to play with more post-ups and post touches and high post touches and stuff like that? Because with a team that has Luka and Bron, I just don't think he's going to get that. But if he's a big who's willing to roll willing to stretch a little bit, willing to pick and pop, even if the pop is just to like a long two, willing to be a lob threat, willing to play some defense. I think he can be a good fit for them. And then still at times hit him in that post up touch. Let him operate out of that short roll and maybe make that extra pass or shoot that midi in the short roll, or shoot the floater in the short roll. He could be a good fit. But if he's not, then I mean, I don't see this going far, because after him, the center room and the center rotation is very short. And we saw, to me, that JJ Redick doesn't love his center rotation, because in the playoffs, he was refusing to play guys like Jackson Hayes, Christian Colo. Like, Jackson Hayes didn't get no burn for real in the playoffs, because I took it as JJ didn't trust him, or at least didn't think he was a fit for that moment. Added Marcus Smart, cool. Cool. Some perimeter defense, but we'll see what version of Marcus Smart we get, because there were times even in the Celtics, this is years ago now, but the times when he was the Celtics, that Marcus Smart reminded me of Memphis Dillon Brooks, where he thought he was better than he really was offensively and doing stuff he had no business doing. He can't fall into that with this Lakers team. I don't think he will with a team that has Luka and Bron. Austin Reeves, Rui. I still think this team is going to struggle a lot in terms of spacing the floor and shooting. I really do. Like, the spacing and three-point shooting, I don't think is really going to be there, but they're going to be interesting. And the team that has Luka, as good as Luka is, it's very similar to what I said about Giannis and the Bucks. You can just drag them. Just drag them to the playoffs into a deep playoff run. That's not impossible. We'll see if it happens, though. Next thing we want to talk about, what are the Kings doing? What do the Kings really want to do here? So the Kings, what I wrote down was, what does this Frankenstein Bulls team look like with DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Sabonis swapped out for Vucevic? What does this Frankenstein Bulls team look like? Also, what does spacing look like for this Frankenstein Bulls team? Because Sabonis, LaVine, maybe not LaVine as much. He can space the floor. He shoots threes at a really good volume and clip. But especially Sabonis and DeRozan, they like to be in the same area. LaVine does like the mid-range a little bit. And then the idea that they want to try to ship off Malik Monk for what? I'm not necessarily certain. To replace him with Russell Westbrook, what are we doing in Sacramento? A team that, the Light the Beam Kings, when the year the Kings just made the play-in for the first time in forever, I was excited for the Kings. The Kings have become like my league pass darling team over the last 3-4-ish years. Maybe even go back like 5 years. I watched when Tyrese and Fox was on the team together. Like, I liked that Kings team. And now, this team now, it's just crazy to me how fast sometimes NBA teams can seem like they're on an upward trajectory, and just something goes wrong, or they hit the eject button and it just goes left. I'm not saying they're plummeting. We're going to have to wait and see how this team goes. But if I had to bet money, and if you ask me, is it going to be a top 6 lock playoff team? Excuse me. No, I don't think this is top 6. They're looking at a play-in appearance, and we'll see how that goes. All right, next on the list, I want to talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves. Honestly, mainly because I'm just a really big fan of Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle. Yes, I said Julius Randle. I am a fan. I think Julius Randle, to me, is a player who, yes, does make mistakes at times, isn't necessarily perfect, but I think his talent is typically overlooked by the NBA media, average fan, by a few moments of blunders. And yes, he can have a few moments of blunders, but in terms of some of the most talented power forwards in the league, to me, Julius Randle is up there. And then Anthony Edwards is just, I mean, I'm not there yet, but many people have him as the best shooting guard in the league. I think he's in that conversation. I'm just not there yet. Shout out Donovan Mitchell. That's just me, though. But I really want to talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves because, yes, I'm excited to see Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle continue to get better playing together. I want to know what that point guard room is going to look like. I wish that they were able to get a point guard this past offseason. And I'm not even saying they had to go crazy. But someone like Lonzo Ball, unfortunately no longer available. He's with the Cavs, but of that, somewhere around there, Malcolm Brogdon, Tyus Jones, like that. I'm not saying all those guys were available, but I'm saying that caliber of point guard, I wish that caliber point guard could be added to this team, because I really think this team needs somebody who can set the table and be a playmaker, and someone who can take the ball out of Anthony Edwards' hands at times. A lot of their offense is just Ant, save us. And Ant can save you a lot, but that's only really going to get you so far when you're going up against some of the elite defenses. You got to have something else. Someone else who can create and put the ball on the floor. That's a guard. Shout out Julius. He can put the ball on the floor. It's not always the best outcome. But like a lead guard who can have control of the pace of a game. Shout out to Mike Conley. Excellent career. Excellent career. One of my favorite players of his generation. And honestly, not even still a bad player, but sometimes I feel like he's just out there because the ball's in Anthony Edwards' hands so much. But like I said, shout out to Mike Conley. He does do an excellent job of spacing the floor. The 40% 3-point shooter on over 4 attempts a game, and has played over 70 games in the last 2 seasons. He's been an Iron Man for them. He's been consistent. And he's been out there on the floor, but I just feel like they need more from him. And I think part of the reason they didn't go out and get whatever that more is because they're really hoping Rob Dillingham steps up and does a lot this year. So I'll be watching Rob Dillingham closely to see if he can step up into some of that, a more prominent lead guard role for this team. Because I think they're good. Like, they are good. It's not even a thing. Objectively, the Minnesota Timberwolves are good, but I really do think they're missing a playmaker, like a key, real playmaker. And then the last 2 teams I have for the Western Conference, Houston Rockets. It's really excited to see them. Obviously, with the addition of Kevin Durant, you're talking about one of the best defenses in the NBA, whose offense was just, hey, we're going to get on fast breaks and force you to turn the ball over and get your rebound and just be out. That was their offense. And adding one of the best half-court scorers in the NBA. My only worry is, not worry, but I guess I'll say my only hesitation is all of their offense, half-court offense, might turn into Kevin Durant. I don't think it will. I think, one, because I think Alperen Sengun is a good enough offensively to be an additional hub to now find Kevin Durant. And I think Alpe's going to have the ball in his hands a lot, but also Alpe's looked fantastic in Eurobasket and is doing a lot of really, really solid things in Eurobasket and playing well for his country. But I think adding Kevin Durant to that team is going to be fantastic. Very similar effect to what adding Desmond Bane to the Orlando Magic is going to be, but on steroids because it's Kevin Durant and not Desmond Bane. And I also like the idea that Kevin Durant isn't going to take away. He's not going to be like an elite defender for the Houston Rockets, and they obviously don't need him to be that. They're not asking him to be that. But I don't think he's going to be a negative defender on that roster and in any lineup he's in, because Kevin Durant's not a bad defender. And unfortunately, there were times where Kevin Durant was the best defender on the Phoenix Suns floor, depending what 5 was on the floor with him. So to go from being the best defender on your teams at times with the Phoenix Suns to being a guy who they're just asking to play solid defense, I think he had the potential to send this team to a level that they haven't seen before, and they were the 2 seed in the West last year. Like, if this meshes well, I think they could compete with an OKC solely by adding Kevin Durant, because I think that's how good Kevin Durant is. Like, call me crazy, but that team was that good defensively last year. Like, the team was just really that good defensively last year that adding a scorer like Kevin Durant is going to open up so much for them on the offensive side of the ball. And I'm excited to see Reed Sheppard get more opportunity with the guard room being opened up a little bit more minutes being available now that Dillon Brooks is gone. And then last but not least, this is kind of like a guilty pleasure for me, the New Orleans Pelicans. I'm a Zion believer. To me, Zion healthy is the best show in the NBA. A healthy Zion is the best show in the NBA. And unfortunately, I haven't seen that a ton. The past couple of years, I thought the trio of Zion, CJ, and Brandon Ingram was going to be fantastic together. Injuries took that opportunity to really see what that could be away from us. We never really got to see it because of injuries. And now I think if Zion is healthy, the addition of Jordan Poole could help out a lot because Jordan Poole likes to play fast, likes to get up and down a lot faster than CJ McCollum likes to play. And Poole, not the world's best playmaker, but he can make some good passes. He can, I think, uh expand his playmaking game by playing on a team like this with Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, and Zion. A little worried about their front court. Yves Messi, Kevon Looney as their bigs. Not bad, just not great either. But with a guy like Zion, you would want a big who can stretch the floor. They weren't able to get that though, unfortunately. But also, none of this matters if Zion can't play due to injury. It, it's just the unfortunate reality of Zion Williamson and New Orleans Pelicans. If they're playing, I'll be tuning in. If he's not playing, I will not watch a game. So that's all I had for. Those are the teams I'm the most interested in this upcoming season. I think it was like 5-6 in the West, 5-6 in the East. As you can tell, I'm interested in a lot of teams. Like I said in the beginning of this, I could go on and on about almost every team in the NBA. Off the top of my head, I really can't think of a team I absolutely have zero interest in. Maybe the Raptors, but that's just because it feels like they're just there. Doesn't necessarily feel like it'd be bad, but also that's not true because I want to see what Brandon Ingram looks like in a full season there. So, like I said, I can find something about anyone, but those are the teams that I truly, truly am the most excited about going into this offseason. There's one thing, and we going back like 2-3 years now. If you're an OG, when we used to do the lives, I used to have the phone number on the screen, let people call in, and we had some good times. We had some good times, some fun callers. I want to do something similar to that, but obviously it won't be live because this is pre-recorded. So I want to implement something called Ask Hawk, and it's this. I found this website that allows you to leave me a voicemail of a question, a hot take, whatever. It's simply speakpipe.com/hawkhoops. Hawks Hoops. Link will be in the description. Click the link. It'll take you right to the webpage. Press the record button, you record your message, and I'll react to it on the next episode, whenever that is. Once again, speakpipe.com/hawkshoops. I want to hear from you guys. My whole thing is let's talk hoops. I like talking hoops. I like hearing from y'all, and hearing what your questions, hot takes, what your thoughts are about the NBA. I just genuinely like talking about basketball with people. So like I said, yes, that'll be in the description. Check that out. And honestly, if you made it this far, you really are a real one. For this being the first episode back, I gotta look and see how long this is by the time I'm done editing it all up. But not even gonna tell you when the next episode is, but sometime next week. Fingers crossed. Thanks so much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one. I'm out. Peace. Also, potentially audio versions available. Check the description. You know what I'm saying? All right.